Thank you, Andy. The role of corporate VC in the industrial world is crucial for safe and impactful implementation of innovative technologies. Successful investment, which is probably linked with targets and KPIs of its business units, is mandatory for the successfulness of any organization. Israel, in this regard, is attracting an interesting attention from global CVCs and investors, and we were witness to a few very recent interesting investments of about $50 million each in promising Israeli tech. Did COVID change any of this? Are we going to witness growth in this domain of investments? Hi all, and thank you very much for joining us. My name is Eliran Elimelech, Senior Director for Strategic Partnerships at Startup Nation Central, and I have the honor to discuss these interesting topics with two very interesting guests. Hi Bill, and hi Heriberto. Mr. Bill Pescatello, founder and managing partner, Evolve Ventures backed by Kraft Heinz, and Mr. Heriberto Diarte Martinez, founder and managing partner of Schneider Electric Ventures, Schneider Electric CVC. Hi everyone, and thank you very much for joining us. Dear Heriberto, the first question is for you. How can a CVC add value to I4 startup? Would you like to share with us a few of your interesting insights from your interesting experience?
With pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. I think in the case of Industry 4.0 startups, CVCs can add a lot of value and probably more than a normal financial VC. The first reason for that is that CVCs have domain expertise. They can really tell the company whether the technology or what they're trying to develop is something that is solving a big problem and people are willing to pay good money for it, or whether it's an engineer's dream with no real business value behind. Secondly, these startups are going to be selling to clients, industrial clients that have a big high bar to buy their products, their solutions. They need the solution to be robust. They need the solution to be proven. They need to add a lot of value. They have sometimes long sales cycles. And CVCs can help the startups navigate, give them the credibility to get those clients. Third, these solutions normally take a combination of, it's not an app, it's software, complicated software, sometimes plus hardware, complex systems that take time to develop and mature. CVCs have the patience to let entrepreneurs build the business instead of just scaling up some quick and dirty to scale up and sell. So we are patient capital. And we have the deep pockets to help the company build up in the long term. And most importantly, when the company is ready to sell, a CVC partner can be a great channel to market and can help scale up the company much faster. And sales adds much more value than equity. So there are many reasons why and stages at which we can help, including even when they're developing the solution, we can test it, we can have our engineers support developing a robust solution.
Thank you very much. Interesting insight indeed. Bill, I would like to hand over the same question to you, but I would like you, with your permission, please, to add the Israeli angle here. Do you see any changes on how the world and how global CVCs are looking at Israeli companies and Israeli startups in this regard?
Sure. Well, I'll start off in terms of, I've been doing venture for about 15 years. I've done it kind of on the strategic side and the purely financial side. And I think as venture investors, our job is to find is the ability to play with the stack deck. Venture is hard enough, and I think the success of your average fund is questionable. That if you don't have a clear advantage of what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing this. And so when we started Evolve Ventures for Kraft Heinz, one of our visions and why we did this was, and one of the things I got really excited about is the ability to put technologies in our ecosystem. So how can we utilize the 5th largest food and beverage company in the world, a company that does almost $30 billion in sales, has 80 factories around the world? How can we find great technologies and amazing startups and be early enterprise customers and really make an impact and a difference and really be value added in a major way from, again, being a meaningful customer, helping product development, and really helping that product market fit. And so that's been a meaningful thing that I've seen that's worked pretty well. In terms of Israel, I mean, we've had a great experience in terms of getting to know companies in Israel. We've made one investment to date in Israel, and I think there's an amazing amount of talent in Israel, particularly technical talent, that can really address a lot of the issues that we're seeing in our factories and our warehouse and industrial 4.0 companies. And we're continuing to go deep there. I mean, there's spaces also too with this pandemic.
Thank you very much, Bill. Interesting insight as well, indeed. Roberto, the next question is for you. And I would like to focus the question on the difference between how you see investment into the brown and green fields of assessment. Do you see any changes or amendments in your overview on how you see startups and how you are looking for innovation in this spectrum?
Okay, most of our investments are in brownfield technologies. I would say 70 to 80% of our investments are in brownfield. But if something is good enough and simple enough for brownfield, it can also be used for greenfield. You see, there is a huge install base of factories and buildings and so on. Industry 4.0 is all about getting more out of those installations. So the majority of the investment has to be in brownfield. So how do you make what already exists much more efficient? If you're relying on completely new build, I think your market is much smaller. Now, if you invest in brownfield, that technology is good enough to be put into new factories or new constructions. So therefore, brownfield is also brownfield plus greenfield, and greenfield is only on greenfield. So that is much more a smaller size of the pie. So our focus is on brownfield. The exceptions where we look for greenfield is we've invested recently in a new hydro technology. But oddly enough, some of the first projects of this new hydro technology is not new hydro power plants, but upgrading existing power plants. And the second thing, we look for greenfield in new construction methodology, in generative design, things that will allow us to build factories and buildings much more efficiently.
Thank you very much. This is a very good observation. I hear what you are saying about what is good for a brownfield can also be good for a greenfield. And I would like to add this to Bill and ask if getting back to what Heriberto mentioned earlier, do you see any changes in the developing and developed world and industries from those countries or those regions in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're very active, across the globe, and are seeing things in the developed and the emerging markets there. Again, we are probably a little bit more focused on the U.S. And again, dealing with emerging companies, where we see the greatest benefit is, again, whether it's wherever the companies are that we're talking to around the world, is we're working to utilize them, within our network. And again, and as mentioned before, the large network that we have, across the globe, again, provides a great advantage for us to utilize those technologies and put them to work, across the spectrum.
Thank you very much. I'm ending a question for you both, and Roberto, let's start with you to answer it. As a seasoned investors in this arena, I wonder if you guys can share with us your key elements on how to evaluate your investments today, and if has any of this changed in terms of the global crisis?
That's an interesting question. The first thing we like to evaluate is what I call the intensity. The solution that you're proposing to build, if it works, how big is the problem that you're solving? How big is the pain that you're solving? Or how big is the benefit that you're creating with that? If it's really intense, it's going to be adopted. The second is, what is the total addressable market? Are you talking about a small market or a big market? That is interesting for us. The third one is the timing. Is this solution ready to be done? For example, in Industry 4.0, if you rely on a bunch of sensors and actuators and so on to be installed to have a pure software-only solution, are the sensors already out there, or are we 5-10 years from that? So the next point would be the timing. Is this the right time for this solution? And then we look at the team. How is the team able to deliver on this? And the good news about the CVC also is that even if the team is not all there to deliver the solution, we can help them find the missing pieces of the team to create the solution. Maybe they're missing the salesperson. We can help them on that one. Then how has this changed? It has changed a little bit because there are some industries which are going to be impacted for a while and some industries who are benefiting. In the next couple of years, we will try to invest in companies which are the final customer are not in the airline or restaurants or hospitality business, even oil and gas, but more in the supply chain, cybersecurity, things that are going to benefit, not things that are going to be subdued for the next 2 years.
Thank you. Bill, what is your take on this question?
Yes, and so in terms of change we're seeing, I mean, we were very fortunate, again, right before the crisis hit. The one Israeli investment actually we made was a company called Fabric, who's out there, who's doing micro fulfillment within the grocery e-commerce space. And this is, again, an area that's absolutely taken off. So there's certain areas post-pandemic that we're seeing really accelerate. So naturally, grocery e-commerce is one of those areas, which is just expanded by years in a matter of months, after the pandemic hit. And so retailers and CPG companies are desperately saying, how can we better fulfill orders and bring it to our customers? When the traditional retail channels are being disrupted and more consumers are going online and are getting shipments directly to their house or doing pickup, how do we do that? And so an amazing Israeli company called Fabric, again, is changing the way that consumers are doing that, and allowing, again, retailers, instead of having Instacart and other folks go up and down the aisles picking food items within physical shoppers, how do you automatically put fulfillment in those locations, behind the stores, in dense urban locations and dark warehouses, and reimagining the way that's happening? And so with all the changes that have happened from the pandemic, companies like Fabric are really changing the way that a lot of people are going to get their groceries and CPG products going forward. And those are the type of investments that we're looking for, again, that are really benefiting in this pandemic.
Thank you very much. You two mentioned several interesting subdomains that have been changed during the last and recent crisis. And I'm just wondering, if you guys were young entrepreneurs today, what will be your recommendation of an interesting subdomain in the industry for Spectrum to start with as a new company, as a new startup? Bill, would you like to start?
Sure. I mean, I think the first one that I would go to, I think from data analytics to machine learning to AI, if I was a young entrepreneur, or if I was someone who is going to the university and learning skill sets that could be really valuable and are going to change industry, that's an area I would certainly focus on. We're looking at things like demand planning. How do we better predict, for your Kraft Heinz, how do you better predict demand for your products at a SKU and local level? How do you figure out which products are needed, what locations are going to be? And there's huge ramifications in terms of where we're putting products across our supply chain. And so AI, machine learning, data analytics are all allowing you to do this at a much more accurate prediction, and allowing us, potentially, if it can be successful, has the potential to save hundreds of millions of dollars. You have other things out there. There was another area that I think is extremely interesting, is around automation. We're seeing, labor costs going up, shortages for folks in warehouses and factories. You're going to see more and more automation throughout the industry. And so if you have the ability from a robotic standpoint and create better automation, within factories, around them, even trucking, we're seeing that. I think that it's projected full autonomy could save 65% of all transportation costs. And so you're seeing billions of dollars that should be brought into savings. And so massive companies are going to be created there. And so there are a lot of exciting things. That's why we're all here. Is there's so much happening in Industry 4.0 and a lot of change happening now that is extremely exciting.
Thank you very much. This is exactly the reason why we as an organization are also emphasizing a lot in developing this ecosystem in the country. Heriberto, same question for you. Any recommendation for young entrepreneur in this spectrum to start with an interesting company in this domain?
Yes, with pleasure. I started 7 companies myself, so I've been on the other side of the table. So let me give you 6 areas where I think things are going to happen in the next few years and where it would be exciting to be in. The first one is the automation of the supply chain. Supply chain needs to become more resilient, needs to become more automatic. And so anything to do that is going to be interesting. And that includes robotics. It includes AI to monitor and manage things remotely. The second one is digitization of any processes. Something that used to happen face-to-face, can it happen digitally? That is something that is going to do well. The third one is I'd like to put something on the table here. We've been talking about Industry 4.0 for a long time. I'd like us as a society to move to Industry 5.0, which I consider to be also part of the circular economy, sustainability, recycling, reusing things, extending the life of equipment, refurbishing equipment, recycling parts of the equipment to make a more sustainable world. I think this area has a bright future as well. Perhaps not today, but in the next few years. The next one is the connected worker, the deskless worker that doesn't have a computer, but is in the factory floor. How can we enhance them to be more productive and have a better workday? The next one is healthy buildings. Buildings are going to evolve, and it's going to be very important that they have good air, good lighting, seamless access control without having to touch anything, just using your face as your entry card and things like that. So healthy buildings. And the last one is there's a very important industry going through a transformation, which is the energy industry. We're moving slowly, but it's going to accelerate from a fossil fuel economy to an electrified or zero emissions economy. In that whole process of going to a new energy landscape with distributed generation of electricity, electric vehicles and all that is about to happen. We're reaching a tipping point in the next couple of years, and that's another exciting area to be in.
Perfect, very interesting. As both entities who are engaging with Israeli companies a lot, and I'm taking now Heriberto's last point about energy and its connection to sustainability, we are aware for several Israeli companies who are developing very interesting technologies which are more on the platform area and can be afterwards, let's say, duplicated in several sustainability cases. I wonder if you guys have a similar feeling and you see the same, let's say, development in other startups and other companies around the globe. Are you sharing similar observation? Bill?
Yeah. No, again, sustainability is obviously an extremely important issue for Kraft Heinz and for us as a fund. One of our last investments was a company called Outrider, which again brings together Industry 4.0 and sustainability. What Outrider does is they have autonomous trucks, electric autonomous trucks that basically fully automate warehouse yards. So we did this investment with Koch Industries, a great set of investors, and really reimagining the ways the warehouse yards operate, and doing it fully electronic, retiring basically diesel trucks, and making it safer, more efficient, and cleaner. And so we think not only is it going to make us more efficient, as an industry, but also again to make the world safer and cleaner, and that's something which we take seriously.
Thank you. Heriberto, would you like also to?
Well, what I would comment is that sustainability, like you rightly said, can be applied to anything. Sustainability is an approach. It's a management approach that can be applied to anything you do, from the cup that you use to buy your coffee in, to where do you consume your electricity, where does it come from, and how much material you use in your industry. It's an approach. And I am very glad to see that this approach that has started in a way with financiers, people caring more and more, started with the general public, now financiers are on it, and they are saying, we want to invest in sustainable businesses. We want to invest in ESG businesses. And so the money is going that way. And I'm hoping that we will follow the money and we will start investing more and more in those areas. And we'll hear the tipping point that sustainability has to be an approach that is a hygiene factor for everything we do.
Interesting. I think sustainability as an approach, this is a perfect line to summarize our discussion. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you both for spending the time to discuss with us today. and wish you all, for the whole audience, a continuous of insightful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.